So today we're going to be doing Geography Now, Cape Verde. I don't know. I'm not going to do this again where I look at the map and I try to find it. I think we should just kind of jump right into it. I don't know much about Cape Verde. I think I'm excited to learn about just about anywhere that I'm unfamiliar with. So this is something that I'm totally cool with just jumping right into. Let's get started.
Hey guys, I know this country is also known.
Is that better? Yeah, it is. Okay, we're going back to the beginning. Thank you.
This country is also known as Cabo Verde. Look, I already made the Cambodia video. Just deal with it. I can't turn back time.
So with this, there is a choice that he has to make. Does he do like translated names or not? And that's one of those issues that a lot of countries deal with all the time. Other countries translating your name, like we translate the name of Germany, like that is what it is. Germany could have happened much earlier than it actually does if you use the name Deutschland. But yeah, he's made his decision at this point. He's picked the format, and it's what we're going for, I suppose. But some countries are very sensitive about that.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey Geography peeps, I'm your host Barbie.
Oh.
Welcome to one of the few places in the world.
What was that?
Now!
Hey Geography
It
peeps.
just flashes green for like a frame.
I'm your host Barbie. Welcome to one of the few places in the world I like to call a African country. We'll explain more
African.
about that in a bit, but first, the flag consists of a blue field with 3 horizontal
I like
bands
that.
of red and white in the lower portion of the flag and 10 stars in a circular pattern overlapping the bands on the left side.
This is one of those things, like, sometimes asymmetry is fine. I think this is a pretty good flag. Honestly, I would probably go for having the 3 stripes centered, but I'm cool with having like the stars a little bit off center. I think that's kind of cool.
The blue represents the ocean and the sky, the white represents the road to construction and development of the nation,
And the red
represents the effort of the people. And the 10 stars represent each of the 10 main
effort of the people, blood of the martyrs, same thing.
islands that make up the nation. Moving on. Now, I love island nations because generally you don't have to worry about border disparities. Haiti, Dominican Republic, you guys are killing me. But also because you get to
that is
decide
hard.
each individual island in the nation's sovereignty as separate entities, unless if the nation is only on one island, which is why Barbados was so frustrating. Which, by the way, Rihanna, you still haven't hit me up yet. Anyway, Cape Verde is located off of the west coast of Africa, about 400 nautical miles from Senegal. And remember, people, nautical miles are longer than regular miles, and it has something to do with the curvature of the earth. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that does the teaching of that expert thing. Cape Verde is in the southernmost part of the Macaronesia ecoregion in the archipelagos all along the coast of Africa, including the Canary, Madeira, and Azores Islands. Cape Verde is the only fully sovereign state in these islands, and the rest are owned by either Spain or Portugal. The country is made up of a cluster of 10 main islands shaped into a sideways V, or a horseshoe. Furthermore, the islands are regionally split up into
As
two
one
separate groups.
refers to
Upper
such.
Barlavento Islands, Santo Antão, São Vicente, Santa Luzia, São Nicolau, Sal, and Boa Vista, as well as the lower
I'm
Sotavento
getting a
Islands, Maio,
theme.
Santiago, Fogo, and Brava. The
Oh,
islands
never mind. The theme's gone.
municipalities, only 4 islands have multiple municipalities, and home to about 1/5 of the entire country's population, the capital Praia is located on the lower and largest island, Santiago. Santiago in itself has about 40% of the population of the entire country, and the next most populous one is São Vicente. The least populated one.
I think that's similar to the population of Indonesia, right? It's like all concentrated on one island. I don't the 40% number. I think it was like close to that for one of their main islands too. I learned about that in oh, that's in the post show. Oh, shh. If you want to know, become a channel member and you can check out the post show. I'll tell you about that when we're done with this video.
Being Santa Luzia, which has no permanent population and is home to a nature reserve, but is still considered one of the main islands. Also keep in mind, Cape Verde also has many minor islands and islets that they don't really talk about much, like Ilo Branco, Ilo Raso, Ilo Rabo de Junco, off of Sal Island,
Ilo.
Sadre.
I assume Ilo it just means island or something, because when you see that common factor, it's not an accident, not like a cultural thing. It's probably that it's the Isle of this.
and Ilho de Cima off of Brava. By the way, that shipwreck off of Boa Vista doesn't count. Neither is this strange cluster of converging waves that I thought was an island but found out it wasn't. Yeah, guys, I like to scan Google Maps a lot. It's very therapeutic for me. These islands have quite a
I respect that.
wrapped up in both social and physical features. The latter one we will discuss in
Physical
The
geography.
thing about Cape Verde is that you kind of see this landscape feature pattern shift go from east to west. The eastern islands of Mayo, Sal, and
Yes, Indonesia is changing its capital. I don't know if that one's shown up on screen, but it's shown up in my little live chat thing that I have below me. So Indonesia's changed its capital, and I checked out a video from Real Life Lore. It's what we're doing on the post show. I already recorded it, but it's going to be coming out right after this for the channel members. So I learned about that actually last night. So yeah, that's why I mentioned Indonesia. I forgot the continuity because I record the post show before I do the main show, and I don't want to pretend I didn't learn anything for the post show, but like also I want to save that for the people who want to watch the post show.
Boa Vista are flat and arid with a desert-like terrain, whereas the western islands are generally rockier, hosting substantially larger portions of vegetation. The reason for this is that even though the islands are off the coast of mainland Africa, Cape Verde is still affected by the Sahelian arid belt, which is part of the Sahel, or that messed up battleground between the Sahara and savannas of Africa that we already discussed like 2 episodes ago. Hi, if you're new to this channel, just pause the video and then open up another tab and look up Benin and Burkina Faso on this channel, and then come back here. Alright, cool. The thing is, the hot, dry, eroding Harmattan winds
Learned about that.
way off the coast and sweep across the easternmost islands of Cape Verde. That's why these 3 islands are dry and desert-like. The western islands, however, although still relatively dry, still have steep hills and mountains that harbor trees and grasses and bushes and plants. This is also where most of the agricultural sector, most notably on the greenest island,
Yeah, I've
and bushes and plants. This is also
I've seen like this type of stuff before. I think I've seen this in something from like National Geographic. Which is strange. I don't know how I remember that. But this is beautiful. I don't fully understand the practical nature of it, but I know it's like agricultural. Agricultural.
also where most of the agricultural sector can be found, most notably on the greenest island, Brava. With a lack of water sources, though, arable land only makes about 10% of the country. Soil is good, but when sparsely timed rainfall does come, it typically comes in the form of violent storms that wash off the topsoil from higher grounds into the sea. The strange thing is, the country doesn't receive cold streams that typically affect the rest of Western Africa, so even though the temperature is generally cooler, the water is still warm. The issue with that, though, is that it kind of makes Cape Verde the perfect factory for creating hurricanes. Now, here's where Cape Verde is
perfect.
a little rascal. Even though they themselves are almost never really affected by hurricanes, Cape Verde's warm waters and cool air breed some of the most violent and intense western-bound hurricanes that eventually hit the Caribbean and east coast of North America. Hey, Cape Verde, no, put down that moisture and gesture. No, put it down, put it down.
Oh no.
I'm not saying Cape Verde wants to create these hurricanes, I'm just saying sometimes they go into a dissociative state while committing international atrocities. Cape Verde only has
That's terrible.
one of which is still active on Fogo Island. The highest peak in the country, Pico de Fogo, last erupted in 2014.
Oh.
If you look at Fogo Island, it's pretty creepy.
Do people just
The country, Pico de Fogo, last
casually watch volcano eruptions? Is that something that people do in places where that is commonplace? Because that seems like I can't tell how close these people are, but there's a lot of stuff like at the top there. Who knows how far that's gonna go out? That could definitely hit somebody. I'm concerned for these people's safety.
erupted in 2014. Now, if you look at Fogo Island, it's pretty creepy because you can tell how big the volcano used to be until the caldera disintegrated into a massive crater with flanks and fissures to the east that dispersed into the sea. Now, despite the lush green areas, they do lack a lot of resources, and the majority of the economy is service-oriented.
Oh.
Now, let's talk about who's doing the service.
Demographics, yay!
Sometimes you can really read a lot about a country based off of the people who live
Oh.
there. Ethnic makeup can kind of
Wait, is that how it...
Sometimes you
Okay, the flag is... It's got the 3 stripes in the thing kind of leaning towards the top. But over here, it's leaning towards the bottom. I don't know who has the flag upside down or if it could just be flown either way. But that's... I'm interested in the answer.
You can really read a lot about a country based off of the people who live there. Ethnic makeup can kind of tell you...
Yeah, these are leaning towards the top as well.
Has Quite a story. When it comes to Cape Verde, the country has a little bit over 500,000 people. About 2 out of every 5 live on Santiago Island. The country's ethnic makeup is pretty unique.
That's towards the bottom.
Kind of like Brazil, the country experienced a whole societal generation shift in which they kind of created a whole new race, so to speak. As a former Portuguese colony and short-lived Portuguese province overseas, Cape Verde has absorbed not just a lot of Portuguese influence, but blood too. Intermarriages and relations between the Portuguese and Africans that were brought over hundreds of years ago eventually led to the country experiencing an entire people group of mixed ancestry. Many of these people are referred to as mestizos or the Creole. Many have claimed that Cape Verdean Creoles are
Creole is a term that's used differently depending on where you are. It usually implies mixed race, but sometimes just when studying the early colonial history of the Americas can imply just people who were born in the Americas rather than born in the homeland. Like, it would be like if a Spanish person was born in like the Spanish colony, they were like a first generation over here. Sometimes you could use the word Creole to imply that. So it has different meanings, and that kind of makes it a little bit confusing depending on where you're talking about.
some of the most beautiful people in the world with features that you pretty much can't find anywhere else. It's not uncommon for a person to have dark brown skin hinting at the African ancestry, but with blonde hair and blue or green eyes and slight Germanic features. That being said, Creoles make up somewhere around 80% of the population, whereas Africans make up about 23%, the remaining 2% being mostly whites, but a sizable community of Asians and Arabs exist as well. Sociologically speaking, Cape Verde is almost kind of like a cross between Brazil and Haiti, in which ethnically they've kind of developed their own racial identity, but also they've created their own Creole language. The problem is, unlike Haiti though, Cape Verdean Creole had problems with becoming standardized, and especially since the dialect differed from island to island. Now, the funny thing is, there's actually more Cape Verdean people living outside of Cape Verde than in it. The US
It's a small place.
of Cape Verdeans mostly along the New England coast that almost match the entire population of Cape Verde
Really?
itself at around 500,000. And that's just the US.
I'm in New England. I don't know if I've met any Cape Verdeans, but you know, like, that's something to keep my eye out for.
So you have hundreds of thousands of Cape Verdeans living in other places abroad, like Angola, Portugal, Senegal, France, Spain, Italy, even Luxembourg for some reason. And that's just a generation.
The toothpaste country, my favorite.
Cape Verdeans had Portuguese passports, so it's hard to get an exact number, but overall, these guys know how to spread out. Of course, as a Lusophone country,
Wait, what was that? Hold on.
but overall,
I can't tell if it's leaning toward. I think it's leaning towards the bottom there. Sorry, I'm kind of obsessing over this because there's a little bit. I'd assume it leans towards the bottom, and some people are getting upside down. Either that, or nobody cares what way you fly it.
of course, as a Lusophone country. Hey guys, that word I just used, Lusophone, it means speaking Portuguese. Just for future reference. Like
Cool.
and Sao Tome and Principe,
He hasn't done one of those before.
noticeably influenced by the Portuguese. The education system, the second best in all of Africa after South Africa, does follow the Portuguese format. However, in 2010, all universities switched to the 4-year American bachelor degree program instead of 5 years, which made students very happy. Island individual-wise, you do see a slight contrast between peoples in each area.
I took 5 years anyway.
For a population, each island kind of chooses which country it wants to be prevalently influenced by. Some lean more towards Portugal, some towards the US, some Netherlands, and even Brazil. This has led to a renaissance of innovatively produced Cape Verdean music and dance, the hallmark national tone being the morna, a melancholy rhythm typically sung in Creole. Nonetheless, leading poet Jorge Barbosa kind of summarizes the islands in his 1935 publication of Archipelago. Look it up yourselves, guys. The poem is like 200 lines long, and reading it to you is not my job. Anyway, the thing about
Fair
Cape
enough.
Verde is that it's incredibly unique in that it has such a cross-cultural complexity. It's not quite African and it's not quite Portuguese, yet it's somewhere half of each, hence African. They're proud of it, and they've long thought of
It's a strange term. I don't know if that's like a term that's considered bad or not. African is a strange term. Like, I think it's a fun term on the face of it. I don't know if I'd go around calling people that.
worlds between Europe and Africa. Harmony is such a beautiful thing, especially in the
Like, it's a cute term.
Without even really having to explain,
I guess.
you can kind of pretty much guess how much Portugal plays into their international engagements. First of all, yes, Portugal is a key player in Cape Verde's inner circle, not just because of their ancestry, but because of their support diplomatically and economically. Even after they gained independence, they still remain close and appreciate each other's company. The US harbors the largest Cape Verdean community outside of Cape Verde and has historically invested in the country's welfare even before independence. Out of the 10 international destinations that their national airline flies to, 2 of them are actually in the US. One in Boston and one in Providence, Rhode Island.
Hey! Oh, I don't know what to do there, but sorry, we got mentioned. We don't get mentioned much.
2 of them are actually in the US. One in Boston and one in Providence, Rhode Island. Lucifer nations like Brazil and Angola and Sao Tome and Principe get along with Cape Verde as well. Trade and travel between these nations is not uncommon. However, the best friend of Cape Verde would probably be Guinea-Bissau. These 2 countries actually were part of the same country after independence, but then after a coup in Guinea-Bissau in 1981, the 2 countries split but still remain close in ties.
Oh, that's cool. Glad they're cool.
Languages and backgrounds, and to this day, Cape Verdeans consider Guinea-Bissau their brother country. In conclusion, you have a beautifully mixed people living in a beautifully mixed culture on a sociopathic chain of islands that shoots out hurricanes. Stay tuned.
Insane.
The Central African Republic is coming up next.
So looking at the time, we do have time for one more, if y'all are down. I think that's the first Rhode Island shout out in a Geography Now thing. So there we go. I'm kind of happy about that. I didn't know this was a culture that was so present around me. Clearly it's more in like Massachusetts than in Rhode Island, but there's more of most things in Massachusetts than Rhode Island. We're kind of like their troublesome younger siblings, so we don't really have as much going for us in that regard. Except a few things. I'm not going into that now. I am absolutely down with doing one more of these, and then I guess we can call it a day if y'all good with that. And we're going to be doing Central African Republic. Let's do it.
Trust me, if you ever get lost here, the last thing you'll want is a compass.
Oh no, the audio's gone. Again.
Time to learn geography now!
Hey guys, I'm your host Barbie. In this episode, we're just going to refer to this country as the Republic. Why? Because Bosnia and Herzegovina taught us the value of abbreviations. That being said, the flag of the Republic is made up of 5 multicolored bars.
Okay, before he gives me any cultural context, I don't know if I like it. I don't know. I like that it has a lot of colors. The layout's kind of weird to me. If the red is the blood of the martyrs, it gets a thumbs up. If it's not, it gets a thumbs down. We're going for that.
Blue, white, green, yellow, and splitting the entire flag in the middle is a red bar. In the upper hoist side, you'll find a yellow star. The flag was intended to blend the French tricolors with the Pan-Africanist movement colors.
Okay, I like that. Okay, in theory, I like that. Because, like, it's got the blue, white, red. And the red is kind of like the center. Well, the red is on the right on the French flag, and it's on the left on the Pan-African color flag thing. So, okay, like, I kind of like that. Like, in principle, I think that's a fun idea. It's a little strange in execution. Like, just having the bar right down the middle. I don't know. It's odd. I don't know if I'd rather it just be, like, 5 stripes going top to bottom, though. That might be a little much, too. So I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied.
The red applying for both. According to the official description, the blue represents the sky and freedom, the white represents peace and dignity, the green for hope and faith, and the yellow for tolerance. And guess what the red symbolizes? The blood of those who fought for the country! The star symbolizes guiding steps towards freedom and emancipation.
Hell yeah.
Keep in mind, there was a very messed up period of time in this country when they used to have this flag. Most Central Africans prefer not to talk about that. We will, but
it's unfortunate that all of the bad times have some pretty good flags. Like, I don't know, that's a pretty good flag. I've had this happen before where I'm like, I really like that flag. I hope nothing terrible happened during that time. I hate to laugh at it, but it's been a common theme now.
not yet. First, we have to cover the... In terms of location, the Republic is kind of like a double-edged sword. They are one of the most blessed and yet cursed places on the planet. First of all, just as the name suggests, the Central African Republic is located in Central Africa, bordered by 6 other countries.
Yeah.
Remember, Sudan split into 2 Sudans a few years ago, and about 2/3 of the country lies on the Ubangi River Basin. Keep in mind,
Oh yeah, that was only a few years ago when this video was made. That's even far. Like when I learned about South Sudan, it wasn't even that long ago. I learned it from a salmonella video, which that's interesting enough. That's fresh in his mind and probably will come into play here. We always have to, I guess, point out that some time has passed since since this video came out, so a lot could have happened in between. But at least if this happened before the Sudan split, that would be probably a completely different sort of neighborly relationship, I'd imagine. But at this point, since it's happening afterwards, it makes it slightly more likely that this video is gonna hold up. Maybe?
Don't let the name fool you. The Central African Republic is actually not the actual center of Africa. That title belongs to an area close to the town of Dongu in the Republic of Congo. Ah, so close! The country is split up into 16 prefectures and 1 autonomous commune, which is also the capital city, Bangui. 2 of these prefectures, Nana Krebisi and Sanga Mbaere, have unique designations as economic prefectures, which basically means the 2 areas administer and facilitate economic activities for the country. By the way, it's kind of hard to explain, but a prefecture is kind of like halfway between a province and a parish. It has something to do with a council that meets up and a prefect presides over them.
That is confusing to me. I never learned that.
Through them, like the Waka, the Kemo, the Nana Mambere, which also is where you can find the strange Neolithic Boer megalith structures, sometimes referred to as the African Stonehenge. All these rivers either
that's
the
cool.
Congo River or Lake Chad. Everything from the Obo River to the Bimbo. Bimbo. Fun little side note, the shape of the Central African Republic somewhat creepishly resembles Burkina Faso. They both have northwest humps and western snouts that jut out in a similar fashion. They're like long lost...
Those aren't the same country? Oh okay, I see it now. For a second there, I thought he was doing like the John Oliver thing where he shows me something and it turns out that's not what he's actually showing me. I thought those were just the same country for a second.
Both have northwest humps and western snouts that jut out in a similar fashion. They're like long lost twins separated at birth! Or decolonization. The capital and largest city in the country, Bangui, is located all the way in the south on the Ubangi River, right on the border of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Most of the population either lives on the west or in the areas around Bangui, with the northern regions more sparsely populated. Historically, getting around in the Republic has always been a little difficult. Even the French were a little reluctant by going inland when they colonized it. There are only about 17 secondary urban centers with more than 20 to 30,000 inhabitants that are mostly concentrated in the west. Otherwise, the rest of the population prefers to live in sparsely scattered villages with only a couple hundred people on agricultural plots. Less than 8% of the country's roads are paved, and many remote areas have little or no access to adjacent towns. Rivers provide locals with boat transportation, however complete isolation is not uncommon. This is partially because of history, but also partially because of the way how the landscape is built. Now let's talk about that.
Yeah, physical geography, yeah.
To put this short, the Republic's land is one of the most untapped resource havens on the planet. Because of the sparse population and limited transport access and centralized political grasp, the Republic's land is for the most part heavily forested, underdeveloped, and untouched. This is kind of both a good and a bad thing. Impossible hideout for Joseph Kony's army! What? I got bronchitis. No, I don't. First of all, the country is composed mainly of flat savannas in the north, equatorial forests with rolling hills in the center, and dense jungles in the south. One thing the Republic has an abundance of is rivers. The country has over 30 main rivers that feed into the forests and grasslands, one of the most beautiful sites being the Les Chutes Boali, located close to Bangui. Of course, with all that water, the country also flourishes in plants. About 3,600 species have been documented, but it's speculated that there could be around 5,000 different species in the country alone, many endemic to the area. National forests also dominate the country all over, including the Zanga-Sanga National Park right at the bottom tip of the country that harbors some of the densest concentrations of rare wildlife like the beautifully striped bongo antelope. The Republic also has the highest concentrations of lowland gorillas and forest elephants than any other country in Africa. Now, believe it or not, the Republic is actually also a hotspot for astronomers and stargazers. Now, because of the vast domain with few metropolitan centers, the Central African Republic is the least light-polluted country in the world. It's not difficult to observe
that makes sense
with the naked eye on clear moonless nights. Agriculture in itself employs about 70% of the entire population. Crops like yams, cassavas, peanuts, and sorghum are commonly...
Like, I've used a local observatory on a couple occasions, and it's very particular. I've been just discouraged from going in on particular nights because there is such significant light pollution in the area. Uh, so like that's probably a dream for an astronomer. That must be awesome.
Grown and harvested. By the way, yuppies, sorghum is gluten-free and it makes some pretty awesome dishes. Check it out at your local overpriced hippie grocery store. Now, here's the thing. If you come to the Republic and bring a compass, it might act very strange and go all haywire. That's because the Republic sits right in the middle of a strange geological phenomena that baffles scientists to this day. I'm talking about the Bangui magnetic anomaly. Magnetic anomalies are areas in the world that...
I'm learning more about these magnetic anomalies the more time goes on. I believe there's the one up in Canada that I looked, well, there might be more than one that I've learned about recently, but none of them that I know fall on the red spots. I'd like to know more about those red spots. I assume that's where it's, oh yeah, it says red magnetic anomaly. I think what I'm talking about is like something like over here. I think I learned about this kind of recently, but it's not like deep red like some of these other spots, so I'd imagine that's probably mild compared to the
have strange variations in Earth's magnetic field for some reason. The Republic sits right in the middle of the largest one in Africa. Some of these anomalies are easier to explain than others. For example, the largest anomaly in the world in Kursk, Russia has an enormous deposit of iron ores on the surface, which understandably would play a major role in deviating magnetic fields. Geophysicists are still baffled and don't quite know exactly why this area acts this way. Some concede that the reason might be because of the profusion of igneous rock under the crust, and others say that it might have been a meteorite impact that happened long ago. If it was a meteorite, that might explain a few things. Had it happened, it possibly would have contributed to the compression and distribution of various minerals and ores in the ground. About half of the Republic's export revenue is concentrated around diamonds and to a lesser extent precious metal commodities. Diamonds are everywhere. I guess you could say that the Republic really does shine bright like a diamond.
Yeah.
Seriously, Rihanna, why you gotta do me like that, girl?
I kind of knew we were going there.
The mining sector is highly underdeveloped and not really exploited much despite the immense potential. This has partially to do with the fact that the country has had a very abrasive history when it came to running itself. Now,
okay, that kind of looks cool. The little curtain thing, and like that actually looks really cool when it's made from the nation, like a split version of the nation's flag. Like it's not even split, it's like just two flags. I kind of wish the one on the right was like inverted, but I get it. I think that looks actually really cool.
Discuss more about that in
demographics.
Okay, so the Republic hasn't really had a good track record when it came to infrastructure maintenance. However, you still find some fascinating sociological aspects about this country. First of all, just to clear things up, a person from the Central African Republic is referred to as a Central African, not Central African Republicans. Got it? Cool.
That's a little confusing because you refer to Central Africa not just as the Central African Republic, but it's also like a region within Africa, so there's a little bit of overlap. Room for confusion, but it is what it is. They identify as what they are.
The country has about 4.7 million residents, roughly a quadruple of the size that it was at independence. Now, in terms of ethnic groups, the country has about 80 different tribes that have their own different languages and dialects. However, in general, they all kind of branch off of three parent groups. The largest groups are the Baya Manjia, the Banda, and the Mbaka people groups that together make up more than 90% of the population. These groups are further divided into sub-tribal groups and ethno-linguistic peoples. The rest are other African tribal groups.
Sussy Mbaka. I can't. Like, I quit. I'm gonna end the stream now. Oh, sorry. I had an intrusive thought that I really wanted to say Sussy Mbaka. I just had to get it out because I couldn't focus.
Unaffiliated and a small community of people groups that together make up more than 90% of the population. These groups are further divided into sub-tribal groups and ethno-linguistic peoples. The rest are other African tribal groups, unaffiliated, and a small community of whites, mostly French or Belgian in descent. Now, here's the cool thing. Yes, French is an official language, however, more people in the Republic actually speak Sango, the other official language. Sango is interesting because unlike other African countries that created creoles based off of European languages, Sango is actually one of the only few African language-based African Creoles in the continent. Based on the local Mbandi language, Sango was used widely before and during colonization to help intertribal communications between people in the area, and to this day, most Central Africans speak it. Okay, now here's where things are gonna get a little morbid. Boo! We only want to hear nice, happy, fluffy things. Then you do not belong on this planet. First of all, yes, the Central African Republic is classified as one of the poorest nations in the world, consistently ranking in the bottom 10 year after year. The GDP per capita is around $350 a year. However, this figure is most likely inaccurate because only reported sales are registered. The Republic's economy also thrives on a completely hidden, unregistered transaction economy. Things like bushmeat, traditional medicines, ivory, and locally produced crops are typically ignored.
Oh,
so
fun.
they could have a higher GDP, but it's just not on the books. The reason why is partially because of really bad leadership. The country has had a ton of coup d'etats.
And they also seemed like they're not super interconnected in general, which would make it generally harder to keep track of anything. I guess you could say that's part of bad leadership, but it's also sort of a geographic fact that would take generations to fully get past, or like an unbelievable amount of resources.
Since independence, some of the most in all of Africa, but not the world. That title belongs to a different country that we're gonna do soon. Now here's the thing, the Central African Republic is kind of like a battle royale. Everybody wants power, and the moment they have it, they're in even more danger than before when they didn't have it. Things got really messed up in the late 60s and 70s when Bokassa took over. Essentially, he overthrew his own cousin and proclaimed himself as Emperor of Central Africa. He ruled with a belligerent agenda, spending nearly a third of the national budget on his coronation alone. The crown itself
terrible.
$5 million. He supervised judicial beatings, executions, and massacres.
That is so bougie.
That refused to buy uniforms from a company owned by one of his wives. Yeah, he was crazy. Eventually, he was deposed with the help of French paratroopers, and the country went back to being a republic. Then things got crazy again, and then there was a civil war. The whole ordeal kind of left the whole country in a very horrible mess that they're still kind of recovering from today. It's kind of like when that kid walks in the cafeteria and trips and spills their entire tray all over everything. Everybody around stares at them and immediately decides how they're going to judge them in a matter of seconds. That's kind of how it is with the republic. Now let's talk more about this high school drama.
Oh yeah, I forgot there was one more section. I thought that was the end.
But bilateral relations are far from non-existent. When it comes to Europe, their biggest import partners are the Dutch, and their biggest export partners are the Belgians. Belgians love those diamonds and have invested a ton of money in resource extraction for their country. France is still close to the Republic, however, they kind of ignore them in favor of other Francophone nations in sub-Saharan Africa. Despite the linguistic and economical ties, the Republic kind of feels a little left out since places like the Ivory Coast and Senegal get more attention. Surprisingly, South Korea has really stepped up and is one of the oldest friends of the Republic, establishing ties just 3 years after independence. To this day, they make the largest Asian import partner. In terms of their best friends,
kind of fascinating.
I would probably say Cameroon. Everybody loves Cameroon. Since most of the population lives in the west, closer to the border of Cameroon, most of the people culturally identify with Cameroonians and get along. Not only that, but Cameroon provides the Republic with access to the sea, and most imports and exports travel through the port of Douala. In conclusion, this country shows us that sitting on a literal diamond mine won't really do much unless if you can get your legislative act together. Central African Republic, we hope you can do that. Stay tuned, Chad is coming up next.
Oh, dude, we get to start with Chad next time. Okay, that should be fun. I think this was a Central African Republic. I'm curious to if anything has changed between here and now, because like there is a lot of room for change to have occurred. There, especially in African countries that are changing so fast right now. I'd hate to assume that everything has all just maintained from them, because there's just been so much. They're often nations with unlimited potential and all that. So there's a lot that could change between. I forgot when that video was. It was years ago, so there's been plenty of time and opportunity for change to have occurred.